Anlin again with Asset Inclusion's coding class. So today we will be talking about drawing in Game Lab. Again, we'll be using the code.org curriculum and following along with that. So if you want to refer to any of the material, you can see the how to code.org video and learn how to get access to all of the content we'll be looking at. So I will share my screen and we'll walk through everything together like we did last time. So we will start from the lesson overview. This is lesson 3. If you want to find it, last time we did lesson 1 and we'll be jumping to lesson 3 right now. Okay, so I'll quickly read the overview. So the class introduced the Game Lab, the programming environment for this unit, and begins to use it to position shapes on the screen. The lesson covers the basics of sequencing and debugging, as well as a few simple commands. At the end of the lesson, the class creates a long online version of the image they designed in the previous lesson. Okay, so the very important parts of what's on this page here is that we'll be talking about sequencing and debugging, as well as what a program means. So vocabulary, the 3 most important vocab words for this time are 1, bug, 2, debugging, and 3, program. So a bug is a part of a program that does not work correctly. So, if you're playing a game and something, doesn't work correctly, for example, if your score has reached a certain target and you don't level up, that might be a bug that the programmer needs to fix. And then debugging, what this means is that you're finding and fixing problems in your program. So we want to debug it. So we're trying to take the bug out. And then lastly, a program is just an algorithm that has been coded. This is something that can be run on a machine. So programs can include games, such as the ones you play. They can include more utility things. For example, if you're paying a check at a restaurant, there's a program that takes care of reading the credit card, calculating the bill, the suggested tip, etc. And yeah, so those 3, that's a brief overview. We'll be talking about that throughout the class. And debugging and bugging is important in coding, but it's also important all throughout life. If you have a problem or an issue in something that you're trying to do correctly, you can think of it as a bug. And if you want to debug something, you're trying to work around and find a solution to get rid of that certain issue. So we'll be seeing it in code, but of course you can transfer a lot of the skills that we learn here to your daily lives. Okay, so this is called Explore Game Lab, and we can create interactive animations and games. So let's look at the first line of code in the workspace before. So the workspace is here, and then the toolbox is on the right or the left here. And let's think about what will happen. So, we have no idea really. This is a hard question, but think about this line of code. There's just one line of code. What may it represent? What do you think it may generate? What do you think this program will do on the screen? So it says rect 100, 100. I'll give you guys all 30, 40 seconds just to think. One hint though is think about rect. This might sound like a shape, right? So what shape might it be? And 100, 100, what might this represent? Okay, so now you guys have had a couple seconds to think. Rect, we'll see, if you guess right, 100, 100, and further hint is that in the toolbox, you see that there's an X and there's a Y. So we're putting an X and a Y into this rect object. And what this might mean is the X position and the Y position. So if you're on, a number line, X, and you're looking at the grid, the Y is how far up you are, and the X is how left or right you are. So let's run this program. It'll run this line when you press run. Okay, so we have a square looking figure at 100, 100. So if you just use your mouse, feel free to pause and log into yourcode.org. You can use your mouse and on, near the show grid below this, it'll show you the X and Y position. So X, right, I'm changing how left and right we are, and the Y, we're changing how up and down we are. So 100, 100 is, let's try to find it. It's like approximately over here somewhere, and that's where this rectangle is being placed. So, if you want to draw a smiley face, we might put one at 100, 100, and then we might put one here, which seems like it's 280, 100, and then we might have like an oval shape here, and that would be our first program. So it's very exciting how much you can do with simple code. Okay, next up, we have a video. I'm going to unshare my screen and then reshare it just to make sure you can hear the audio. I will play this video. Feel free to take notes or just enjoy the video. This is going to teach us an introduction to GameLab, which is what we use to draw shapes and sprites and create games in general.
I'm Amara, I'm a student at Dartmouth College, and I love to code and dance. People always thought I was good with technical stuff with computers and phones, and then I did Girls Who Code. And yeah, seeing other girls interested and realizing that it was more accessible than I think I thought was a good gateway into computer science. Welcome to GameLab. GameLab is a tool that lets you draw pictures, design animations, and build your own games with code. To create these animations and games, you'll be learning and using the programming language JavaScript. GameLab is designed with the beginning programmer in mind, but it also includes many powerful features to help you bring your creations to life. Let's get started. In GameLab, you can add lines of code to your program by dragging blocks out from the toolbox and snapping them together. Then click the Run button to see the result. The output of the program will show up on the left in the display area. If you prefer, you can also type the commands yourself. Either way you write your code, you can always flip between block mode and text mode. In fact, you can work in text mode and drag blocks out to insert the text. If you make an error, you can use the blocks as a way to check if it's the right command. If you want to get rid of a line of code, just drag the block off the screen. You can also delete it from the text. To start out, you'll be drawing with simple shapes like rectangles and ellipses. That's a fancy name for an oval. To change where shapes show up on the screen, you can change the numbers given to each command. The first two numbers set the position of the shape. The last two numbers change the size. Let's check out an example where we want to move our rectangle down the screen and then make it wider. In GameLab, the X and Y position starts at the top left corner. If we want to move the rectangle down the screen, we actually need to increase the Y value. To make the rectangle wider, we'll also need to increase its width. Learning how to use new commands doesn't have to be trial and error. If you hover over any of the blocks, you can read more about how to use it and see detailed examples of each command. I don't know what I want to do after college, but I know that computer science will give me a lot of opportunities to work in many different industries, which is why I like it so much.
Okay, great. So that was Amara's, I think that was her name, definition of GameLab, and also she explained how to code shapes both in block form and by typing it out. So she explained a lot of what I did, but of course it's great to listen to similar descriptions twice to really understand deeply what is happening. And I really like what she said at the very end of the video. This isn't really related to GameLab, but just in general, how applicable computer science is. She said that it'll give her exposure and the opportunity to go into many different industries, which I think is super duper true. If you know how to code, you can become a mathematician, you can do engineering, whether it's mechanical engineering or aerospace engineering. Aerospace engineering includes like designing planes and transportation. So there's just so many outlets. You can become a web designer, make websites, you can become a game designer and create games like Minecraft, work for Google, Facebook, social media platforms. There's so much that you can do with a computer science background. And just learning the basics, for example, here in this class, SM inclusion, is a really good, great step. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and happy to talk. So on with Game Lab. Okay, so we want to place squares in corners for this exercise. So the previous video that we just watched talked a little bit about the position, right? So 0, 0, x 0, and y equal to 0 is the top left corner. And as you go to the right, you're increasing that x position because you're moving left and right. If you go down, you're increasing the y position. So 0, 0 is top left, and the bottom right would be very big position numbers, 400, 400. So our task right now is to place two rectangles exactly in the corners of the screen, just like this picture here to the right. So if you have code.org open and if you're following these exercises, feel free to pause the video and try it out for yourself before we walk through it together. So I'll just give you a second. Great. So now that you've paused it and unpaused it, or you did pause it, let's think about the solution to this problem. So we have one rectangle and we can drag another one in. Okay, so now we have two rectangles. And even though we shouldn't be guessing and checking for every single coding problem, we can just see, what this will return. Okay, so we have one rectangle on the not top left, but a little bit higher and to the left of the second one. And it seems like size-wise, they're the correct size. They're similar size to the answer key here on the right-hand side, but position-wise, they're quite different. So let's think about, which rectangle represents which block of code. So it seems over here, right, we have that the x-axis is 0 over here, and as you go greater, it increases. So this rectangle here must correspond to this first block of code. And we have at 100, 100, but we want it to be over here. So if you just hover your mouse, you see that position is very close to 0. And remember what the video said, we have that we want it equal to 0, 0 in order to be really on the top right or top left. So if we do that, you see that, yeah, it goes to the top left. And now we want to determine where this other rectangle should go in terms of position. So right now it seems like it's 200, 200. And if we kind of hover over, we see that the grid ends at 400 and 400 on both the x and y axes. So if we change this, to 400, 400, let's see what happens. Oh no. So it seems that it's not 400, 400. Great. So trial and error is always great. Essentially, the reason why it shouldn't be at 400, 400 is that because the code places the top left corner of the rectangle at the position that you indicate. So on the first rectangle here on the top left, 0, 0 is the top right corner. And because we place the top right corner at 400, 400, the square is actually over here. So it's off the grid. So we should probably see, how wide this rectangle is. And it seems that it's about 50, yeah, 50 in width and 50 in height. So we would subtract 50 from both of these, both the x and the y coordinates. Oh no, that shouldn't be there. So this is actually a really good example of what a bug is. I accidentally added a blank parameter and we don't want that. And the computer indicated that this was an error and also what the error is, which led me to fix it. So you'll see this a lot with coding. Even if you're an amazing coders still experience bugs, and we all have to debug to figure out what the issue is and how to solve it. Okay, so now it seems like we have exactly what the picture wants us to. And yeah, so I will cover the rest of it in our next class. It will start with a video and then there will be a couple more exercises. Thanks all for coming to this class, and there will be a small quiz linked to this class for you to fill out. It'll be multiple choice questions, and I'd really encourage you to do it to kind of check your understanding with all the coding we've done so far. So thank you again for coming, and I'll see you next time.